I've seen things in this world that would make Isaac Newton crawl back into his mother's womb. Welcome to the Mind Your Movies podcast. This is episode 8.5 on
Nosferatu.
Robert Eggers, the new one.
The new one, that's right.
I'm Shane.
And I'm Ryan.
And yes, that's Mind Your Movies podcast. So, we should have like a real set in stone intro by now, probably.
Yeah. Well,
to make it easier.
Yeah, maybe we can
we do the quote. Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, so we're if you haven't seen the new Nosferatu, go and see it. It's worth seeing. It's an interesting movie. And come back. We're gonna talk spoilers. There's a decent amount to spoil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're here thinking that this was the original Nosferatu, the 1922 one, well, we have good news for you. If you just go back to our last episode, episode 8, we talk about that original Nosferatu along with the original Metropolis from 1927. So if you're in the wrong place, it's okay.
Yes. And we have not covered Nosferatu the Vampire, the Werner Herzog movie, or Nosferatu in Venice. We haven't covered that one either.
That's right. Or Shadow of the Vampire. Maybe one day. But in the meantime,
this will also just to wet your palate a little bit. This is going to be probably the furthest apart Ryan and I have been on the podcast so far.
That's right. If you follow us on Letterboxd, you might have already seen our reviews, but I think we have some different opinions on this one. I assume some similar stuff that we'll get into too, but
yeah, probably.
I mean, it's a rock movie.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, should we just get right into it? Should we do a little background? I guess obviously it's directed by Robert Eggers, his fourth movie.
That's right.
And yeah, it's kind of a big hit. Made like $50 million at the box office. I was kind of surprised, like a Nosferatu movie coming out on Christmas Day and big fervor for it, I guess.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, there was a lot of hype for this movie. And I mean, the story is 100 years old, right? It's kind of surprising that I think it's lived on so well. A fun little tidbit is Robert Eggers, in like an interview, said that he was very grateful of SpongeBob's Nosferatu appearance because he felt like it introduced a whole new audience of a whole new generation of people to the original, or this version of the original vampire story.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. That tracks. Pretty much whenever I've talked to other people, you just say Nosferatu and they're like, oh, like from SpongeBob. And it's like, oh, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, same. And I'm always kind of begrudgingly like, yep. That's the one. I mean, hey, if that's what you know it from, that's awesome. But if you watch this movie, you'll have a much different experience than the hash-slinging slasher episode of SpongeBob.
Slightly different. Slightly more Nosferatu cock.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Wasn't expecting the Nosferatu cock.
Yeah. I saw somewhere that I think Nicholas Hoult got to keep the fake.
I think he like Robert Eggers framed it and gave it to him like as a gift or something.
That's hilarious.
I don't know what I would burn that. Get that away from me.
Some vampire dick.
Oh my god. That's part of my problem with the movie actually. But we'll get into that later.
Well, before we jump into it, it is really well received so far. I don't know if this is like super appropriate. This movie's only been out for like a week and a bit, but I figured I'll throw in the stats. This is as of January 5th. So, you know, this could be totally different when you're watching this, but as of January 5th, it was 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, 75% audience score, 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb, 3.9 out of 5 on Letterboxd, bringing it to an average of 7.9 out of 10. Using our metrics, which is pretty good. Definitely not the best thing that we have a lot of like really high reviews lately, going back to like the 20s movies, but it's really good. That is a really high rating, I would say.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. The audience score is a little lower than the critic score on this one.
Yeah, I would agree.
But yeah, so overall, what?
I was just going to say, so obviously this is a retelling of the original story, but it follows pretty closely to the original. It is something like an extra 45 minutes, I think.
Yeah, about.
Maybe. So
it fleshes things out a lot more than the original story, I think.
Yeah. And it starts kind of different. The original just starts with Thomas, like... going to work and getting the contract to go to the place, brings back the flowers for Ellen, blah, blah.
That's what happened at the beginning of this one, right? Am I crazy?
This one starts with Ellen calling to Nosferatu
Oh,
years
yeah.
before, apparently.
Yeah. She has had, yeah, that is a big change to the story.
Yeah.
Ellen has had these dreams of Nosferatu and communicates with him, I guess, through dreams or something, since she was, well, I guess, like a teenager, it seems like.
Yeah, it was very ambiguous, and it said years later, right? It was very ambiguous. She looked pretty much the same age. Same age. I don't know, but yeah. So that, I think that's the most notable change in the story in total. Like, and it's right at the beginning. It's very in your face that, like, you know, this is somewhat different, but then the rest of the story pretty much follows what you'd expect.
Yeah, they even have the line like, "Oh, you killed these flowers" or whatever, which is from the original. So there is like homage to the original. But yeah, you're right. In this version, Ellen is a much bigger part of the plot throughout, whereas in the original, it kind of is more that she becomes a bigger part of the plot in like the second half or the third act. Right. But in this one, they kind of make her a crucial part of the whole. She's kind of the main character. Yeah. I don't know if there is like truly a main character in the movie.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's hard because for a little while you're following Thomas at the castle.
Yep.
But then he falls off the castle thing, running away from the wolves. And then you're pretty much following Ellen. Right. And what's his face?
Like Aaron Taylor Johnson. Yeah, I forget his character's name.
Whatever.
Did you like Aaron Taylor Johnson in this?
I thought he was acting well. I thought he was a great actor. Yes. But his character was kind of annoying.
Interesting. I thought he was the most interesting character in the whole movie.
Interesting.
See, because I've seen this online. It seems like people who really like the movie are like not into that guy, but people who don't like the movie are like, that guy was like kind of the best part. Like Aaron Taylor Johnson kind of stole the show, and this is also lining up with that.
That's weird. I haven't seen anything about that. I'm curious about why that might be the case, but yeah, I thought all the acting in this movie was absolutely phenomenal. I can't think of like anyone in this movie that I thought did a anywhere near a bad job acting. I don't know if you thought pretty similar.
No, I thought everyone was great. I love Willem Dafoe is one of my favorite actors. He's really good in this. And I think part of maybe the appeal, so Aaron Taylor Johnson plays Frederick Harding. Right. Friedrich.
Which is a reference to F.W.
Oh, there you go. I think
his first name was actually Frederick.
Okay, there you go. But I think maybe part of the appeal is that he comes off, to me, him and his wife, Anna, come off as the most normal people in the movie. They react to things the way a normal person would. And, like, they're kind of just trying their best. They're like, okay, this lady's crazy. I don't know what to do. Let me call the doctor. And the doctor's like, well, tie her to the fucking bed. And he's like, all right, I guess I have to. I don't know what else to do. Like, he has no idea. So he's kind of like, he's in over his head. And I think he's more relatable to me than a lot of the other characters. And Nicholas Hoult, he's also kind of just like random Joe Schmo. He doesn't like whatever. I guess people could just relate to him, but he's kind of a wet blanket. You know what I mean? He gets like stepped all over. He doesn't, I don't know.
You don't want to relate to him.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
He's like cowering in fear most of the time.
Yeah, he's a little pathetic. And Nicholas Hoult is very good at playing that character. But yeah, so I think that might be part of the appeal of the Friedrich character. Because Willem Dafoe, on the other hand, I can't, like, and that's part of the thing with this whole movie. Just straight off the bat, I want to say, I'm just not into like occult and like magical devil shit. Like I rewatched The Witch before seeing this actually, because I hadn't seen it since it came out, and I remember liking it in theaters but not loving it. And I love The Lighthouse and The Northman, so I was like, all right, let me go back and rewatch that, and it was really good. But still, the fact that all this witch stuff and devil stuff and occult things are real, like, it's just hard for me to buy in to the movie like 100%. So even though The Witch was a really good movie and I thought it was great, I still am like, I didn't personally love it. So now if you take those occult things and you stretch it out another 45 minutes and all that kind of stuff, like it wore on me a little bit. So I think that is a personal preference thing, on top of maybe some like pacing issues and like some things I found repetitive in the movie. But yeah, so like characters like Willem Dafoe's character, like he's crazy and fun to watch because Willem Dafoe is awesome. But also I'm like, this guy's fucking crazy. Like, what? But then in the movie, it's like, oh no, he's actually right about everything. Right. So it's kind of,
Yeah. No, I definitely see what you're saying. I think I think I'm on the other end of the spectrum where I do have a soft spot, even maybe for like the occult stuff in movies at times. But which is funny because actually, like, I'm not a huge fan of like ghost movies in general, unless they're really good.
Yeah.
But oftentimes I feel like they're just maybe poorly made, right? A lot of that occult stuff in many movies feels like half baked or undone.
Yeah.
But I think maybe because this is building off the original Nosferatu and it's building off Dracula in a way, right? I think that there's a lot more built up here that helps it feel to me more fleshed out, and like I can buy into that because I'm like, you know, I'm a nerd for that, right? Like I'm into it, but I can definitely see like this is not our world, right? Like you can't go into this and be like, yeah, if this was me, I knew what I would do, because it's never going to be you, right? This is not, so I totally feel what you're saying there. I think I am on the other end of the spectrum though. I've seen that show Supernatural way too many times.
Yeah, there you go.
I got the box set of the Blu-ray, by the way.
Really?
Christmas.
Nice. That's a good Christmas present.
Yeah.
So you're gonna wear those Blu-rays down and wear them out.
Anyway,
but also, like another example for me would be Long Legs. A perfect example of this for my personal like taste, where the beginning of the movie is kind of just a normal. It's very influenced by Silence of the Lambs. There's a police officer investigating a serial killer. It's creepy. There's a couple creepy scenes, really good. And then in the second half, it becomes occult, devil worship stuff is real. And then I'm kind of like, you lost me. Like, this is just kind of ridiculous. And it just loses me. So I think that's just a factor of this movie. I don't think that's 100% why this is my least favorite Robert Eggers movie, but I think that's a factor for me.
Yeah. See, I actually felt that with Long Legs too, but I think part of that for Long Legs is I didn't expect that going in. Right? For this, I knew going in that I'm not buying into a world where I could exist, right? I'm buying into a world that is totally fictional and totally fantastic, right?
Yeah.
Which to me was an appeal, right? But it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. And I feel like the things that they added to this movie are sort of this like almost telepathic thing with Ellen and Nosferatu, and that just didn't like work for me. I just didn't really understand like what's happening here, and I didn't really understand what Nosferatu is supposed to represent, or because he's a real guy, but then also is he supposed to represent death? But then I don't know. It felt like I wasn't able to like get my bearings like metaphorically either, because also like he's the most disgusting thing in the world, but then also she wants to fuck him. What's going on?
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm simple.
No.
Why would you want to fuck that rotting corpse of a man?
I think that in all fairness, I think that Robert Eggers wanted to follow really closely to the original, but I think he also wanted to try to make it a little more modern, just a tiny bit, but enough where like some of the metaphor of the original and some of the metaphor of the new maybe clash in certain ways, where in the original, right, I feel strongly that the Nosferatu symbolized kind of the death of World War I, right? Like the overlurking like plague that was going through the trenches and all that, right? Which is why he controls rats and looks kind of ratish, right? And in this, they carry with that, right? Like he does all those things, but in this, there's times where he feels more like a metaphor for like Ellen's like mental health, maybe, where like at the beginning,
or her sexual desire,
thing
like that.
There's a lot of like sexual undertone. I mean, not even undertone.
A lot.
This is just a very sexual movie.
Yes, not sexy though.
No. Oh no. Well, that last scene.
Unless you're fucked up. If you think this movie is sexy, you need to see a doctor.
Call me an ambulance. No. So, but I think that idea of trying to like keep it very connected to the original while trying to make new metaphors might have led to some clashing ideas. Because I had a hard time like thinking of like why certain stuff was happening, or like what things could symbolize. Like, not that every movie has to have things symbolize stuff, but I think that Eggers probably is gonna do that,
right?
You know,
at one point in the movie, literally someone says, I think it's Willem Dafoe's character says, Nosferatu is death. I'm like, all right, you just said what the metaphor is for the movie, but now is that not the case, or it felt like mixed and
Yeah.
a lot of ideas that didn't come together for me.
Yeah. See, I almost feel like that's part of the original metaphor, right? And he's like, this is the original metaphor, but it might not be as obvious today without the context of World War I and plague rats in the trenches and stuff.
Well, yeah, but like death and stuff is ever present. You could have,
nobody's died in the past 100 years. Right? No, I know what you mean. That's true. But I feel like in a way he's trying to like consign that metaphor and be like, you know what? This was what the original one was going for. I can make it more overt and also try to do something underneath the surface, right? But I don't know if what was underneath the surface really, if I fully understand it. There's like, so in context, sorry, we actually should have maybe started with, in context, I saw this movie on opening night, and then I also saw it one other time. So I've seen it twice now. I saw it on film, which was cool. But so I've seen it twice now, and I still don't fully understand everything that's happening, especially metaphorically. But I mean, metaphorically, I think the plot's pretty. Yeah, if you don't understand the plot, yeah, it's okay.
Well, you might have trouble understanding the plot if you can't understand what the hell anyone's saying. That might be a thing. Yeah. Nosferatu's accent is thick.
Yeah. But when we left the theater the second time, I went with a group on the second time, and one of the people I was with said something about, I can't wait to watch that with subtitles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. But yeah, so I don't know. The aspect of her mental illness is definitely there, and the way I thought one of the more interesting parts of the movie was the way the doctor treats her, and the fucked up. Like at one point, she just like is passed out, and then she just wakes up, and he's like, "All right, I'll give her a little more of the stuff," and he gives her he chloroforms her. And
yeah,
it's like how primitive medicine was at this time. It's set in 1838, I believe.
Yeah,
and Yeah, I thought that was one of the more interesting parts of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
But then it just wasn't clear what is going on. Like, I don't know. That was for me.
Yeah, I think that part was really interesting to me, and it was a very fun. But I think that, like, Eggers was definitely poking a lot of fun at that. Like, in the theater, both times, people were laughing at all these moments. Like, when he's talking to... I don't remember who he's talking to, but he's talking to... the doctor's talking to, Friedrich, yes. And they're talking, and then all of a sudden, she starts like waking up, and he's like, more ether. And then he walks over, and like everyone in the theater was just cracking.
Yeah, right? I also laughed at some of these moments, but my theater was not laughing. No one in my theater was laughing. It was just, I don't know. People aren't trained to laugh at like period piece horror movies.
Yeah.
I think it's a little... People aren't used to that, but I enjoyed some of the humor in some of the movie, and I think I did find some of the more like quote unquote realistic aspects of the movie more interesting, like the way I really liked the gypsy. I don't know if gypsy is the right word, but the travelers, the peasants that
I think he calls them peasants at one point.
Yes, he does.
Somebody else does call them gypsies, but I think
Thomas, on his way to Count Warlock's castle, stops in a village of, I guess, gypsies, or I think they're speaking like Romani or something like that. And they give him like the warning, like, don't go to the fucking castle, but they're speaking a different language, so he doesn't understand what they're saying. And he looks just confused and terrified the entire time. And I'm like, you haven't seen the worst of it, buddy. Wait till you get to this castle. But that aspect of seeing that village and the way their like life was portrayed, even though it was only a small part of the movie, I thought that was really fascinating. And I liked the way they showed the doctor and the way medicine was at the time and the way Friedrich was and just the way it reflected society at that time. I found all that very interesting, but then it would get into just Ellen being basically like possessed, and it's all very unexplained, and it just lost me. But I did enjoy a lot of parts of the movie, and yeah. Also, this is the thing about the movie. It's supposed to be very accurate, and it is. And this is a crazy thing. It's not a problem with the movie, but it kind of is. But it's really just a problem with movies in general. It's supposed to be accurate. It's set in Germany, and everyone speaks English.
Oh, yeah.
But language is a factor in the movie where he goes to a village and he doesn't speak the right language, and Nosferatu speaks with an accent, and like they are trying to be so accurate, and even the signs on the buildings are in German, but then everyone just speaks English, and I know it's just suspend your disbelief, and it's not actually a big deal. It's not actually a problem with the movie, but I wish there would be movies like, I'm thinking of like Inglourious Bastards, where obviously Tarantino has so much pull and leverage that he can kind of do what he wants. But that movie, obviously most of it's in English, but the parts of it that aren't, the people speak the actual language that they would be speaking in those scenes, that to where it makes sense. And I know that's a ridiculous ask, and who knows, maybe Robert Eggers could do that in the future. It seems like something maybe he would do. But that was just like, I don't know. It's just a thing to note, a thing that I wish movies were more able to do.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I understand why it's difficult.
Yeah. And I imagine one hard part about this particular piece is Eggers had wanted to do this for a long time, right? This was actually, I think he wanted this to be a second movie. He like started plans for it back in like 2015 or something, like just after The Witch. But it it got delayed and everything, and ended up making, of course, The Lighthouse and then The Northman in the meantime. And so I think that part of it is like, and also he knew who he wanted to work with. Like he had people in mind since that original planning. Like he knew he wanted Bill Skarsgård from then. Actually, I think Bill Skarsgård was supposed to be Thomas in the original idea, and then he ended up going with Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah.
Probably after seeing Renfield,
Yeah, probably. But great movie, Renfield.
But so I imagine like if you know exactly who you want to work with, right? I imagine that makes it much harder to be like, also we're going to make this movie in German.
Yeah. No. I know. It's not something I would actually expect, and you just suspend your disbelief. It didn't actually affect my enjoyment of the movie, really, but it's just something I thought of because language is like a factor in the story, to even a minor amount. So it's something I thought of, but it's not really a problem with the movie. It's just something that I wish movies could do a little more. It'd be kind of cool.
I will say another thing so going back a little bit, because you talked about the scene when he is speaking to these like peasants in the village or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And this is interesting contrast to the original. In the original, he's in that inn and he finds the book on Nosferatu and he reads the book. And of course, since the original is silent, you read the book with him essentially, right? But in this, instead of having that whole he finds the book thing, he goes out and like follows these people into the woods that night, and he sees them like exhume a corpse and stab it with a thing, and the thing is actually it throws up blood and it seems like it might have been somewhat alive. And it begs the question in this that I don't think ever comes up in the original of, are there more of these not
vampires?
Vampires, yeah. Like
they stake a vampire they pull him out of his grave, then they stake him to the ground and they kill a vampire and he sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is very cool. I thought that was a cool scene.
I did too, but it begs the question, like, is there more of are there more of them? Is this more like in Dracula, how he can turn people? But also, if that's the case, it kind of like, I think it muddles the mythology a little bit, but not in like a bad way necessarily. It just makes me more interested in like, what really is going on? Like, are they even done if they kill Nosferatu? Because
so what you're saying is they're going to make Nosferatus. Nosferatu TWO.
Oh God. Oh no, I hope not. But I thought that was a cool addition because in this one, you don't need to. In fact, oftentimes when people like read stuff in movies, I can find it to be a little annoying, And so in the silent film, it works really well. But in this, I don't think it would have worked for me as much. And I like the way they ended up doing that. It was really cool. Yeah. To have him learn about the vampire myth and stuff.
I thought that whole, I think Romani village, I guess we'd call it. I thought that was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Just it felt so lived in, and the snow and just the environment and the setting was very atmospheric, and his sense of feeling out of place and not knowing what's going on was you could feel that.
Which I think leads into another thing about this movie that I think is like obviously the best thing about this movie, which is the lighting and the just the way things are framed in the movie and the cinematography. And this is Jaron Blanchk, who's done all of Blaschke.
I don't know. Blaschke?
Blaschke.
I don't know. Jaron Blaschke? I actually don't know.
But who has done like all of, I don't know if he did The Witch, but he definitely did The Lighthouse and The Northman.
Yep. And he did Knock at the Cabin with
that's right.
M. Night.
And I think he did do The Witch. That might be his first movie, actually.
I'm going to check right now. I'll tell you right now. He did do The Witch.
There we go. And that might be his first feature length as well. I'm not really sure. But this duo with him and Eggers, they've done like every one of their movies just looks absolutely fantastic. And you can kind of see, I feel like The Witch is kind of the most remedial. Not that it is remedial, but like as you move forward, like I actually still haven't seen The Northman, but the Witch is a little bit less maybe artsy, right?
It's pretty artsy, but it's less complicated. I would say. It's a little bit more simple, but the framing and everything is very. It's definitely on the artsier side. I think.
Yeah,
but it's more simple than this. Just
right, and I think that's the thing. Maybe not artsier, but yeah, it gets more complicated kind of as you go along.
Yeah,
and I'm very curious, like what these will start looking like soon, because this looked phenomenal. Like the lighting in this, so I think that Jaron Blanchke developed like specific filters to emphasize fire light, like light from a fire and also light from like the moon and stuff. And I think it just works so well and it looks so good. And the whole, every time that I'm like in a scene, there's like 3 that specifically sit out, which is the inn. When he's in the inn, there's like a lot of like lanterns and candles, and it
in the village on the way.
Yeah. And it just looks so good. And then also pretty much the next scene, kind of when he's like he's walking down that crossroads, just phenomenal. The carriage comes out and everything. And then lastly, when he's in Orlok's castle for the first time, and the fireplace scene, by far the best scene of the movie, in my opinion. By far, it just creepy. It looked great. It was like I was like, if that was me, I'd have piss in my pants, you know? Like,
yeah, interesting. I see what you mean. I think there's a couple things I wanted to say about these, but shadows is definitely a big motif in the movie. It's just a big factor of what's going on. I'm sure there's symbolism people could read into it, but there is like a scene also where Ellen, I keep wanting to call her Helen, but it's Ellen. She's like explaining, I don't know, she's talking about how she wants to fuck Nosferatu or whatever she's saying. And there's a lot of scenes like that where she's whatever, but she is sort of turned towards shadow, and almost her entire face is in shadow. And it sort of just shows her being sort of drawn to the darkness, Nosferatu, whatever that is. And I thought that really worked. And the use of shadows was, because shadows were such a big part of the original movie. I think that they continue that motif while like modernizing it and taking it in a new direction, while still, building on the original, but without just copying it or feeling redundant. So I thought that was an impressive aspect of the movie. And like you said, with the inn and all the night scenes are very dark because it's 1838 and they don't have electricity. And this is another aspect of the movie that is like a realistic thing of what it would have been like to live at this time that I liked, but I feel like the movie didn't, like, I don't know, it does play into it a lot, but they don't like explain it necessarily. But just the idea that, oh yeah, for most of human history, once it's nighttime, it's just like pitch black, dark as hell. You can't see anything. You might have a lantern that you can see a couple feet around you if you're lucky, and that's terrifying. Like, that's really scary to be out in the woods and you don't know what the hell is over there. And I think they emphasize that with the lighting really, really well. So yeah, that was another aspect of the movie that I did like.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. I think the other thing about the cinematography is the framing. I think it's like no surprise that these two made a movie that has really good framing, but I think the framing in this movie reminds me a lot of the original as well. Because in the original, there was some times when like there was just really good framed moments of like a doorway or an archway or whatever it was, right? And it just looked like they put so much. I mean, this is like German expressionism in that time, right? Which you see it even like with Metropolis a bit, right? Which we watched later, but and I think this movie does carry on those motifs of German expressionism like really well, right? The lighting, or the shadows,
It's sort
what did
of
I just say?
the framing.
The
of
framing.
everything.
There we go. Thanks.
But yeah, it sort of takes the influence of that and takes it in a modern way, I think. And it's a little more realistic. Obviously, German expressionism is more heightened and like a little more, because it's expressionism, right?
Yeah.
But this is a sort of a more realistic version of that, but the influence is there.
Yeah, the cinematography influence.
Yeah,
Not necessarily the
set
abstractism or anything.
Yeah.
Cabinet
Because everything does look quite realistic.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the cinematography, I see what you're saying. I will say, cinematography, I don't know, like, I saw this in the theater one time. I wasn't taking notes the whole time. So I'd have to rewatch it to be really certain about this, but it felt like there were a lot of slow pushes on things and like slow zooms and not zooms, but just panning and a lot of these slow movements. And the cinematography was very good, but I also felt, I don't know if it was the cinematography or there's probably a lot of factors in this, but the runtime really, I felt it a lot in this movie. Like pretty much he goes, the beginning is pretty, you're moving on with the story pretty quick. He's on his way, he gets there, he pisses his pants with Orlok. And then he gets like bit, but he just kind of feels sick. He doesn't like turn into a vampire or anything. He's kind of just a sick guy. And then, Orlok is on the boat, and then there's this whole section of Ellen being like possessed basically and having these fits in the night and all this stuff. And I feel like a lot of these scenes felt repetitive to me. I don't know like every single scene, like, oh, you should have cut these or whatever. Yeah. I'm not trying to suggest that, but it did feel like this section of the movie, it felt like they were like repeating beats over and over. And I was like I get it. Like, I kind of get what's going on. I felt like it was a little too much. And the cinematography, maybe I don't know, it emphasizes the dread and all that kind of stuff. And maybe that just wore me down as part of it. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it was more just the pacing and maybe a little bit of repeating some story beats that I felt like was unnecessary.
I definitely...
Jeez, the guy just got exhumed by Nosferatu.
Yeah,
possessed.
That's a mistake. No, I definitely think that... like, I noticed both times a lot of the slow pans and the slow zooms. There's one time where it like zooms in on Ellen's bun from behind.
Oh yeah,
her like hair bun.
Yeah. And
then one time when he's like when Thomas is going over a bridge, it like pans across and it like shows him walking over the bridge, but it keeps panning. You see like a bunch of crosses and it keeps panning a little bit, and it almost feels like it's panning just a little too much. And I don't know if it's just like. Maybe to emphasize the dread and to emphasize like the isolation and all that in this time. But I definitely noticed that both times. Although I don't think I really thought it was like I didn't mind it, but it was definitely there, right? Like it definitely felt a little experimental at times, which I'm okay with. But I will say the runtime. So the first time I saw it, it was like Christmas Day. We double featured the original Nosferatu, and then we went to the theater to see this.
Damn.
Like Christmas Day, you and I joked about like ditching our families to record this for that, like the day after, but we didn't. So I did that with my brother and my family. So, and it was great, but I think there's like a lot of hype there, right? Like we're going like opening day. It's like Christmas. The day's been a long day. Like I'm just excited to sit in the theater and like veg out to this movie, and I did, right? And like I don't think I noticed the runtime at all. It flew by, and I think part of that was the experience, right?
Yeah.
The second time I saw it on film at the Coolidge Corner Theater with a bunch of people.
Great theater.
Oh yeah.
Was it in like the main movie house?
Yeah.
I mean, well, that's where I think where they do all the film projections, but that theater is awesome.
Yeah.
It's like classic, like I think it's from like the 1920s.
1933.
Oh, okay.
I think.
But yeah, it's just an awesome theater. If anyone's in Boston, go, and you want to see a cool classic movie theater, go there. They have a lot of cool, they'll do movies projected on film, and they'll do repertory screenings and stuff like that. So
yeah, and they do a lot of like throwback stuff too. Definitely worth, if you're in the area, check it out. But they also, so at the theater though, there's these like blue lights on the side that I don't think I've ever noticed because I'm not usually there for like a super dark movie, and the middle row you don't really notice at all, right? But we ended up sitting under one of these lights, and it's a really dim blue light.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna be honest, this movie is not the movie to have a dim blue light right above your head.
Yeah.
And so there was actually parts of this movie where I think I noticed the runtime partly because I was so annoyed by this stupid light above.
Oh no.
So like every once in a while, I literally just like looked up at the light and like kept looking back and was like, they don't turn these off?
Interesting.
Which again, like I never noticed there. It's not like, I don't think that's like a traditional problem.
So this is a light above you. These are a lot of theaters on the ground,
right? It's
on
not
the walkway. They have lights.
Yeah.
This is an above the head light.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's a dim blue light. Like I don't think it's very noticeable in most movies, but in this is a very dark movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff watching it through at the Coolidge that I knew I knew that I should have seen, but I did not see because of the lighting. And I think part of that is I was like right there with the light. I don't think even the people with me maybe had as much of a problem. But I think that just the annoyance of it, like that situation made me feel the runtime. So it's hard to say if I really can attribute that to like the pacing or anything.
Or if you're just pissed off because of this fucking light.
Yeah. And
man. So we give all this praise to the Coolidge and then they put a fucking light in your face. I mean, come on.
So I lean towards like thinking that I might have an oddly biased opinion on the pacing because the first day when I first saw it, I was like this super hyped up mode, right? Like,
yeah,
I could have sat through
Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah. And it would have felt like 2 minutes, or something. But and then the second time I could have sat through like, a 10-minute short film and it would have felt like an hour.
Yeah.
So I have like a weird bias, like middle opinion where I think the pacing, I just have to say, I think it was fine. I guess like average it out.
Well, that's the thing with movies. It is so subjective, and we bring things into it, and and all that. And maybe I don't know for whatever. Also, I watched this around the holidays, so it's kind of just a stressful time of the year where just shit's going on, and so maybe that's part of it where I'm like feeling the runtime because I'm just busy in life in general. I don't know, but I definitely felt the runtime a lot, and that was a big factor in the movie. And also maybe the part of the thing is I know the story. I was like, I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't need to see her possessed a million times while I'm complaining. Another thing I did not like about the movie was the jump scares.
Another one.
This is a major key. Jump scares, bad. Not just kidding. Some people like jump scares. I just don't like them. There's nothing wrong with them. If people like it and they enjoy that in the movie, that's fine.
Yeah.
I just don't enjoy it. Usually it's just a loud noise and it makes me jump because it's just a random loud noise. And then I feel like annoyed. Honestly, that's how jump scares make me feel. They don't make me feel thrilled or excited or, ooh, that's fun. It just makes me roll my eyes usually. And Robert Eggers movies before this, I don't know if there's a single jump scare in any of those movies. And if there is, it's kind of like motivated and it doesn't feel cheap. But in this movie, it felt like there was some like Conjuring type jump scares or something. Like he would like pan to the right and then he'd pan to the left and it'd be like, all right, when he pans back, there's going to be something behind her. And then like at one point, Anna is Friedrich's wife and she's sort of like the normal one. And then Ellen's all fucked up and Anna is just sitting it's nighttime. So, it's dark and Ellen just is standing right behind her and the camera pans over. It pans back to Anna, and then right behind her is Ellen, like pops out of the shadow and goes like, "Hey," but it's loud. She's like, "I'm not even gonna do it because then it'll blow everyone's eardrums out." But it's just a completely stupid, unmotivated jump scare I did not like, and it just felt so out of place and not something I expect in a Robert Eggers movie.
Yeah.
And it's personal preference. If people enjoy that, that's fine. But it's just something I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
And it kind of just.
I think it also, I imagine that if you're not really fully sold on everything that's happening in the movie, and then you get these jump scares that you just think are kind of annoying, I imagine that also kind of makes the movie feel stretched out.
Yeah.
like, again, like we have these expectations and these emotions that happen during and before the movie that can make us like totally impact how we feel about the movie.
Yeah.
So I imagine all that stuff maybe helps explain maybe the long runtime. Not that the pacing was perfect or anything, but like, just context, right? I think for me, like the jump scares, I don't really mind. I mean, I don't know. I watch a stupid amount of horror movies, right? I don't really mind jump scares. I think that there are times when they feel really cheap, right? But I don't know if I really felt that here. I think the one you're talking about, I do remember that, and I do think that was kind of annoying, I guess. But for the most part, like there's one on the boat when the guy's like about to, or just breaks into the thing, and there's rats in there, and then all of a sudden Nosferatu's behind him and stomps him.
Yeah.
And I thought like some of that, like that one, I actually thought was like pretty well done. And I thought for the most part, I don't know if I really noticed feeling annoyed by them, but if you don't like jump scares, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
There are jump scares, and
that is something you wouldn't expect from Eggers.
yeah,
That's
exactly. So that kind of threw me off, and yeah, I just can't I can't think of a single jump scare in a movie ever that is memorable and good to me. Literally, I can't you know what I mean? Like it just feels like a cheap tactic to me, and yeah,
We put jump scares on our genre list.
Oh God! I mean, we can. I mean, there are good movies with jump scares in them. It's just like that's never the good part of the movie. It's like if it's a good movie because of the cinematography, the story, the acting, all this stuff. But then the jump scares are never a part that I enjoy. Anyway,
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously, when it comes to any movie, like personal biases and personal preferences are a big factor. And so even though I didn't like the movie, and I do think there are issues I had with the movie itself. Also, part of it is just my personal biases and what I like and don't like. So yeah, I want to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
It's not just I'm not trying to shit on the filmmakers. Like clearly everyone involved in this is super talented and it's very well made in a lot of ways. But I think some parts of it got away from them, and I think some parts of it just don't appeal to me.
Yeah. And I think that makes total sense. And I think on the opposite end of the spectrum, I think that there's people like me that might go into this with a lot of excitement for that type of thing, right? Like the more traditional modern horror elements in this occult, spooky 100-year-old story, right?
Yeah.
And to me, all that worked really well for the most part. I think like some of the things that I don't know. I don't know if there's really anything that I could point to and be like, because of this, the movie is knocked down for me. I don't know if there's really anything specific that I can point to. I think overall, I really enjoyed quite a lot of it.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
I was going to say, maybe we're getting toward the end here, but one thing I think we should talk about before we wrap it up. What did you think of Count Orlok's character design and appearance?
Oh, let me tell you. Tell you.
That was the right question.
This is a good one. Well, first of all, I just want a huge shout out to Skarsgård, right? I mean, I think that he's really setting himself as the character now that could just put on a bunch of prosthetic, be a creepy guy, and do something incredibly talented to make it creepy.
Yeah.
In it, right? He's in a ton of prosthetics to look like the clown, but he also does this weird eye thing. And that eye thing is actually just a thing he can do.
I haven't seen the new It movies, so
I don't even know how to describe it. He just does this really creepy thing with his eye. And it turns out there's a story of someone asking him one time how'd they do that in what did they do to make that happen in special effects or whatever? And he was like, oh, this, and he just does it. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
But in this, he did voice training for a long time, like some crazy amount of time to bring his voice down by a whole octave or something.
Yeah.
So most of, if not all of the voice that you hear of Nosferatu is actually just him.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. I actually when I was watching, I think I knew that Bill Skarsgård was in it, but I forgot, and I really had no idea who was playing Nosferatu. Couldn't recognize anyone. I kind of assumed it was just some foreign actor I've never heard of, and I was like, oh, they cast a really good guy who's to be this character, and no, it turns out it was Bill Skarsgård. Is there a K Skarsgård?
I know Skarsgård, but I can be wrong
because I know there's the other Skarsgård. Right, of the Skarsgård clan. Let's see. Yeah, it is Skarsgård. I don't know why I thought. Yeah, I think they're like all family, right?
I think
like Stellan and
probably
there's another one. Anyway.
But yeah, so I thought like just before even jumping too much into Nosferatu's character and design, just a huge shout out to him because I think that he does really well here. And like, yeah, you're right. Like, it doesn't even really look like him, and neither in It, right? Like, I guess you haven't seen it, but Pennywise in It doesn't really look like Bill Skarsgård, right?
No, he doesn't at all.
Yeah. And like, so I think he is really making himself like a standout. Like, dude, he can do incredible stuff. And like, no one will even know that it's him. Like, you can just put a bunch of prosthetics on, and he works really well with that prosthetics, right? Yeah. And he gets really into the character, and he can really commit himself, right? Like, as shown by changing his voice to this really creepy thing here.
Yeah, he's definitely really great at that. And it's interesting that he's more still recognizable as an actor in some way. Maybe because I looked it up. Stellan is his dad, and then Alexander Skarsgård is his brother.
Okay.
I guess. But anyway, he's like, people recognize him and know him, whereas another guy I think of that's similar is Doug Jones, who was in like The Shape of Water, a bunch of Guillermo del Toro movies. He's in Pan's Labyrinth, but a lot of the time he's in a costume and like he's like a contortionist kind of a guy, and he does all these creepy things. But no one knows who Doug Jones is really. If he was walking down the street, no one would recognize him. So it's sort of like he's taking that a similar role, but also while kind of being not quite a movie star, but you know. Kind of.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, he's really good, and his voice is creepy. And how do you feel about the mustache?
I don't know how I see like everyone saying yes to the mustache or no to the mustache.
Yeah,
I really don't have an opinion on the mustache. I guess I don't think it particularly adds to the character. I don't think it particularly takes away from the character.
Yeah.
Maybe it makes it feel more timely. You know, I don't really know.
Apparently, like pretty much all noblemen at that time had mustaches, so he did it to be accurate.
There you go. Then I like it.
There you go. All right.
What do you think about the mustache?
I'm fine with it. Yeah. I also didn't have like a super strong. I didn't expect Nosferatu to have a mustache, but I was cool with it. Yeah. I didn't mind the mustache. I think the design is very, very creepy. His skin is rotting off.
Yeah.
Like you can see like holes in his and like rotting parts of his skin and all this stuff. And he's completely disgusting. His knuckles and like bones are like all like enlarged, sort of like
almost looks like in the substance after like she's used too much of the stuff in her.
Yes.
Sorry, spoiler for the substance.
No, that's okay. Well, yeah.
It's been out for a while.
No, that's not really.
Yeah, watch our episode.
But you don't know. We didn't give away that much.
Yeah.
Substance, great movie. But yeah, his design is super creepy. But then like I just don't. It just doesn't work to me with the sexual element of the movie, where Ellen is like infatuated with him or drawn to him or something like that. But he's the most disgusting, rotting corpse of all time, and so I just don't. I don't know. It just seemed like two different, interesting ideas that like clashed with each other to me, and so it didn't work for me.
I feel like maybe he's supposed to represent like this thing that she's like this darkness that she is like attracted to, right? But to like an outsider, like it's clear that it's bad, right? And like to me, maybe that represents something like addiction or something like not addiction, but like I don't know. Like I feel like there's something in there about the mental health or something symbolism. I don't really know. Again, that was part of the stuff where I was like really trying to understand some metaphor with all of the Ellen stuff, because there's so much more Ellen stuff that I feel like there has to be some big metaphor that Eggers was trying to use to make this maybe a little more modern of a tale.
Right.
And I don't get it all, but I think maybe that has to do with it though, that like to us, to an outsider, he's grotesque.
Yeah.
Right. But to her, it's like what she wanted when she was younger, right? What she needed, right? And now she's trying to overcome it.
All right, I guess. But maybe it's supposed to be like a BDSM thing. What else is, I don't know.
I don't know.
If to an outsider, BDS, if people getting whipped and all this shit is fucked up, and you're like, this is horrible, but then people enjoy it. I don't know. So what the fuck? I don't know.
Yeah.
But to me, I don't know. It just didn't work for me. I was like,
Yeah.
anyway.
No, I get that. I will say one more thing real quick about Skarsgård. Is just one of the notes that I written down that I almost forgot about is he totally like controls every scene that he's in, I feel like. Especially like that fireplace scene. Again, like one reason why I really like that scene is like he is this totally intimidating and imposing character that really without even like we barely know what he looks like, right? It's so dark. You really just see a mustache. That's really it. And yet he still just controls that scene, right? And Nicholas Hoult plays really well to help us kind of feel that isolation and maybe intimidatedness that he feels, right? But I think overall it's really him, right? It's really Skarsgård that controls like so many of the scenes that he's in. It just feels like suddenly he owns that camera work, right? Everything is about him.
Yeah, he's
which
very
makes sense.
imposing presence.
Yes.
Yeah.
It makes sense. The movie's called Nosferatu. He should probably control the scenes that he's in, but they do really well here making it seem that way.
Yeah. It was also very unclear to me what his like powers are or what they do or what he can and cannot do.
Yeah. We talked about that with the original one too, actually.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's a lot of ambiguity there. And in this, I don't think it was any more clear. That's for sure.
Yeah, not really. Also, I feel like if there's supposed to be something about mental illness about the Ellen character, but then it's all just Nosferatu. Within the story, objectively, it's just like this, it's a Nosferatu thing. And Nosferatu's not real. But then the idea of, oh, women had mental illness and it was called hysteria, or they were tied to beds and they were given drugs and like the fucked up way people have dealt with mental illness in history. That's all really interesting to me. But then they kind of like scratch the surface of it a little bit, but then within the context of the movie, it's all just Nosferatu.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what the fuck? That doesn't do anything for me. It's just some monster from Transylvania.
Yeah.
Like, so it just felt like a lot of ideas that none of them were fully fleshed out, and some of them clash with each other in my opinion. So I think that was part of the reason too that the movie didn't work for me fully.
I can see that. I feel like again that might be kind of like Eggers trying to stay really, like honor the original, while trying to make more modern stuff as well. And I think it does clash a little bit, and I don't know exactly how to reconcile it. Like I said, I don't really understand all of the maybe modern metaphors that he's trying to put in. But for me, I don't know if it really deteriorated too much from my experience, but it did make me, there was times where I was like, what am I supposed to think about this?
Yeah.
I will say one thing that I thought was really powering that I did notice was that so the movie starts with Ellen calling to Nosferatu in bed, and whatever that whole sexual undertones might, I don't know what it all means, but she's calling to him for the first time, and he comes and he says, "You've wakened me from eternity," or something, right? And whatever he says, and then the movie ends. So she calls this darkness, right? She for the first time, she gives into some desire, right? And she calls this darkness, whatever he's supposed to represent. And then at the end, pretty much the very last scene, I think there's like one shot of Willem Dafoe afterwards, but pretty much the last scene. No, actually it is the last scene is her and Nosferatu dead on the bed, right?
Yeah, I think that's the very last shot is the overhead.
Yeah.
Shot of
this very sexy scene.
Well, no. Disgusting.
But this scene, so it starts with her for the first time calling this darkness from a bed, right? And then it ends with her defeating this darkness
by fucking him all night long
and sacrificing herself, right? But so I think there's definitely, it's interesting that the story that's being told here, unlike in the original, this story is really the story of Ellen and Nosferatu. And it's kind of sandwiched between their first and last interactions. Whereas the original, again, Ellen's really not a big part of the story until the final act, right?
Yeah.
And when she has to
just to fuck him until the sun comes up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But so I think that is a cool thing that I noticed, and I still don't exactly understand what Nosferatu represents here, but I do think that it's cool that they kind of encapsulated the story between, like, kind of bookended it between their first and last interaction.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Also, there's kind of an interesting thing toward the end of the movie that's just in this, where there's these 3 nights where she kind of calls on him, and then he's like, in 3 nights, you'll fuck me, or whatever. I don't know. And then every night he's going to kill people, and he kills Friedrich's children, and, he has to deal with that. And there's also the aspect of Willem Dafoe. Also, we haven't even talked about Knock, who in this version is actually always working for Nosferatu. I feel like in the original, it's not quite clear that that's the case. Like, he kind of just sends him on his way, and then he goes crazy.
Yeah, although in the original, he does have that, like, occult writing, that contract that he, like, has the first day is, like, this, like, weird scribbles
right
in, like, some weird Enochian dialect or something, and that's the same thing that Nosferatu uses for the contract.
Yeah.
So I think
so. He is working for him in the original from the beginning.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this one they make it especially clear.
Oh yeah.
And
he's
a
like
crazy guy. He eats a pigeon's head off. He like bites a pigeon's head off and all this stuff. And then Willem Dafoe like takes Nicholas Hoult away so that Nosferatu can fuck his wife. And
like any good man.
Nah. I don't know, man. It just felt like so many things going on, but it was all I don't know.
Yeah,
we're done. We talked about it.
I will say one more cool thing is that they actually trained they used 500 trained rats. I don't know if they trained them or if they.
I heard that. But yeah, I saw in an interview Willem Dafoe was talking about how they were like creepy, but then one would pop up and be cute, and it would like ruin the shot. Which is kind of funny.
Which is pretty cool. I don't know. PETA doesn't like it, but I don't know if they treated them badly. I assume not, but who knows?
I know there were rats treated badly in the Herzog version.
They like bleach them, right?
Something like that.
That's messed up.
Yeah, pretty fucked up. But I mean, I imagine they kind of they looked like they were trying not to step on them.
Yeah, no, I think in this, I imagine that if they did something bad to the rats, we would have known about it. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's an optimistic way to look at things happening. But also, speaking of the Herzog one, this is actually the same castle as the Herzog one.
Really?
Yeah. I haven't seen the Herzog one, but apparently this is the same. Huh. They use the same castle.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. It feels, I guess, I don't know. It felt different. It felt, I don't know. It's just lit and shot differently.
Oh, yeah.
I would have never guessed that.
Yeah. To close off, I will say there's one cool anecdote that I saw on like Wikipedia maybe or something where Eggers like kind of was infatuated by the story of Nosferatu and Dracula as a young kid and actually developed like a theater rendition of it for his high school with someone else.
Yeah. I saw that, and that's cool. He sort of always wanted to do this because whatever, it's what got him into being a director, I guess.
Yeah. So in a way, it's kind of his first thing. He, I mean, not obviously is not his first film, but it was kind of destined that he would make this. And I'm glad it actually happened.
Yeah, definitely. All right. That's that?
Yeah, I guess we can
talk about
quickly do our ratings.
Yeah.
Again, this is probably our most separated opinion. Yeah. But hopefully you guys have a little bit of insight on why we're about to give these ratings.
Yeah.
And we'd love to hear what you guys think. But
yeah.
What did you give it, Shane?
I gave it 2.5 stars. I thought it was just okay. There were some good parts. There were some bad parts. Mixed bag. So 2.5, right in the middle.
Nice. I gave it 4.5. If you follow me on my Letterboxd, my most recent rating is 4 stars. That's mostly because of that stupid light.
That damn light.
Yep. It was really cool to see it on film. I will say this movie, if you get the chance, there's still a few places showing it on film. You can look up the Coolidge Corner Theater is one of them, but there's a bunch of others as well, or a few others as well. And
just don't sit under the light.
Yeah, that's true. Don't do that. But if you get the chance to watch it on film, this movie really benefits, I think, from it a little bit in the sense that if nothing else, it adds texture and it makes it even look older than maybe watching it on digital does. So definitely recommend.
Do you know if it was like 35 millimeter or 70?
35.
35, yeah. Cool.
There was a funny part too when our projectionist kind of messed up because it like the reel kept going and you could see the number 3 for a second and everything cut off.
Oh, that's funny.
And then he clearly just had to switch they clearly had to switch the the reel or something, but and then it kept back up. But it was funny because you could tell that it clearly happened one other time. I imagine this is in like 3 reels and they have to switch it. But the first time they did it quick enough where nobody knew, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then the second time you saw the number 3. So you know what happened before because there had to be number 2.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. Pro tip, if you're a projectionist, probably don't let people see that.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's okay. That's kind of cool though. It's
Yeah.
a unique thing that you wouldn't see most times nowadays, you know?
Yeah, definitely a fun. I mean, I haven't had the chance to see too many things on film, so always cool to be able to do it anyways. But I think this movie is one of those that like really awesome to see on film if you can.
Sound like Nosferatu. This guy's about to grow a mustache and fuck Lily Rose Depp or something. I don't know. All right. Well, anyway, that was Nosferatu. Interesting movie. Glad we talked about it. This is episode 8.5. Next up, we're talking college movies, where episode 9 will be Blue Chips, the 1994 William Friedkin movie about college basketball, and Cat Person. Yes, which I believe is on Hulu in the US.
2023 movie, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it yet. I still haven't watched it.
Yeah.
So watch it with us.
Yeah. Also, Blue Chips was on Amazon. It's not anymore, though. I know. Brutal.
Yeah.
So we waited too long. That's what happens when we choose 2 weeks in advance, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be a good episode, I think. And then 9.5, we don't really know what we're doing yet. So
yeah.
we'll figure it out, and we'll tell you on episode 9.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right.
And if you have suggestions, feel free to let us know.
Yeah. Send us emails, mindyourmoviespodcast@gmail.com. Go to our Instagram, Mind Your Movies Podcast. If you go to our letterbox, you can just type in Mind Your Movies, one word, and our account should pop up. And then from there, we have all our links to everything. So
and links to our individual letterbox as well. So if you do want to be keeping up with, at the beginning of our longer episodes, we always talk about some of the things that we've watched recently, but we're both like, we watch too many movies.
Yeah.
So we obviously can't talk about all the movies that we watched.
Yeah.
So if you want, feel free to follow us and keep up with the other stuff we're doing.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, Happy New Year, everyone. And we'll see you next time.